Hello dear viewers, Andrew LaPomardo back once more. Today, our lesson is Tentacled Humanoid Monster Ishia Kambaro from Dagon 2001, explained in detail. Book-to-movie adaptations can often disappoint hardcore fans, but Stuart Gordon is a director that fans of H.P. Lovecraft can always rely upon. Having directed the classic Re-Animator in 1985, fans were ecstatic to find out that he adapted Lovecraft's The Shadows Over Innsmouth as Dagon, or Dagon, La Secta del Mar. This Spanish horror/thriller film happens to be a loose adaptation of not just The Shadow Over Innsmouth, but also Lovecraft's short story Dagon. Several factors differ in the movie when compared to the book, but writer Dennis Paoli has created a strong, well-adapted plot, with Gordon executing it masterfully. The two had originally decided to work on the movie in 1985. Previously, Gordon has worked on several other stellar horror movies and TV series, such as Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the Halloween episode, Dolls, and From Beyond. Don't think we forgot about Castle Freak. It is a classic. With brilliant filmography, Gordon has made a solid name for himself in the genre of horror, but Dagon has often gotten overlooked, which is a bummer, as it comes with a strong story. The Wall Street investor Paul, who is a student in the book, is on a boat with three of his friends when a storm causes the boat to crash. Paul finds himself in the deserted town of Imboca, based on Innsmouth. He gradually learns that the place is not your regular fishing town, and something bigger is at play here. With mer people as its populace, Paul realizes that the other humans are being used as sacrifices for the deity Dagon, in return for fish and gold, the two sources of wealth for the people of Imboca. A shocking revelation takes place, and Paul learns of his origin as a half-human and half-fish entity. In the end, he transforms into a merman and accepts his new identity. The cast comprises of Ishia Kambaro as the protagonist Paul Marshall, Raquel Morano as his girlfriend Barbara, Macarena Gomez as the mermaid Ishia, Francisco Rabal as Ezekiel, Furiran LaHorse as the priest, Birgit Beaufarrell as Vicky, and Brandon Price as Howard. This film was Godin, Gomez, and Beaufarrell's debut in film, while it was Rabal's last as he tragically passed away soon after. It paid homage to the late actor before the end credits rolled. Before diving into the content, we would like to make a very small request to our viewers. Please subscribe to Marvelous Videos, like and comment on our videos, and press that little bell icon over there to be notified whenever we upload a video. We would be grateful to you, and we hope to bring you the best in nerdy content. And with that, let's get right into the video. You cannot care for her, you cannot dream of her. Dagon 2001. The movie begins with Paul Marsh finding his way into an eye hole while diving underwater. He comes across a mermaid with shark-like teeth. It turns out to be a recurring dream that plagues him, which he discusses with his girlfriend Barbara. The two of them were on a boat with benefactor Howard and his wife Vicky, sailing off the shores of Spain after receiving a large amount of profit from business. Ishia Kambaro modeled his portrayal of Paul Marsh on Lloyd, and that is what influenced the glasses in the first place. Paul is pretty bad at balancing his social life and his home life, so Barbara throws his files into the ocean. As you'd expect from any movie where the main characters are in the sea, a storm soon turns out to be an obstacle in their way, and the boat strikes against the rocks. Vicky gets trapped below deck after getting pinned between the boat and the rock. Howard stays by while Paul and Barbara take a raft to the nearby fishing town of Imboca to look for some help. Vicky begins to sense something strange in the water, and Howard begins to shoot at it blindly, following which the mysterious creature attacks them. As they were off the shores of Spain, Lovecraft's fictional place Innsmouth was renamed in Spanish, which went on to become Imboca. Paul and Barbara jog around the abandoned town and reach a church, where Paul noticed the eye-hole symbol from his dream. They find a priest and ask for his help to rescue Vicky and Howard. The priest hooks them up with two fishermen who volunteer to help, but they had to leave either Paul or Barbara in the town. The latter stays back and tries to find a phone in order to contact a doctor and the police. Barbara is led through the town, and reaches an inn with terrible customer service. Meanwhile, Paul reaches the boat and finds it deserted, barring Vicky's orange towel. He is taken to Mboka once again and sent to the same hotel as Barbara, but he can't find her either. The innkeeper has something that looks like slashes on his neck. It actually was his gills. And the hotel also turns out to be the worst hotel you could ever go to. We are talking a 1-star rating at best. Paul rests in his terrible hotel room and dreams of the mermaid once again, who has tentacles coming out of her mouth, because the beauty standards for women are never realistic enough. Fortunately for him, it turns out to be only a dream, but he finds quite a few cloaked people gathering near the hotel. These people are quite fishy. They have gills, interdigital membranes, and cannot move or blink in a generic way. In the original story of The Shadow Over Innsmouth, this is how H.P. Lovecraft had described its population. They break into his room. Paul flees, crashing through a glass window. He finds himself in a tannery and hides there. But much to his displeasure, he is greeted by several human skins and Howard's remains. He lights that place on fire and runs away. Paul gets a hold of Ezekiel, an old, drunk seaman, who just happens to be the last full-blooded human being in the town. However, his speech turns out to be quite indecipherable. That obstacle is managed, and Ezekiel tells Paul about the tale of Mboka, a fishing town without enough fish for the town to sustain. The people would pray to God, but it did not work for them when Ishia Kambaro, the captain of a fishing ship, intervened and asked them to worship Dagon instead of Jesus. This character was based on Obed Marsh from the book. Interestingly enough, Dagon is a half-man, half-fish deity who does appear in the Judeo-Christian Bible. He is the father of Baal and worshipped by the Assyrians in Nineveh. The prophet Jonah was sent to preach to them. Few of the residents partook in a ritual, resulting in horrors in the sea, but it ended up being a success after they were endowed with enormous amounts of fish and gold following the problems at the sea. The people of the town founded the Church of Dagon, the one with the eye as a symbol, and appointed Ishia Kambaro as the high priest. The symbol of the eye was not present in Lovecraft's book, however, and is just a cool visual addition to the movie. According to the Esoteric Order of Dagon, they had to dismantle the Catholic Church and kill its priests to establish their new church. However, Dagon required blood sacrifice and wanted to breed with human women in exchange for his offerings. Soon, the human population began to perish. While mer-humans took over the town, Dagon's offsprings began to settle in the town, and they often kidnapped trespassers for sacrificial purposes. Ezekiel would lament over the loss people subjected themselves to for such short-lived prosperity. Now you see, Paul believes the story to be fake, but rolls with it, since Ezekiel could take him to the only car in town. That is the one at the mayor's mansion. Ezekiel distracts some of the fishy men, and Paul slips inside. He ruins his chances by accidentally honking. Paul is forced to flee into the manor for his safety when he meets the mermaid from his dreams, a beautiful woman named Ishia. Turns out, she had been waiting for him, and Paul isn't one to let the opportunity slip. So, he ends up making out with her. After finding out that she has gills and her legs are actually tentacles, he escapes, even though she pleads with him to stay. He takes the mayor's car for his escape, which doesn't work out after a pedestrian gets caught in the radiator. Happens to the best of us. And he has to continue on foot. A kid gets his shark-octopus hybrid father to get Paul, never thought I'd say that sentence, who escapes once again before being caught in a net. The fishy folk catch him and throw him into a barn. There he meets Barbara, Ezekiel, and Vicky once again. They plan to escape together, but Vicky's lower body is doing its best John Cena impersonation. You know, because you can't see it. She also reveals that she has been impregnated by the amphibious seed of Dagon after being raped. Vicky, clearly traumatized, kills herself. Paul and Ezekiel end up in a butchery after getting separated from Barbara. They are chained and refuse to worship Dagon. In the end, Ezekiel is killed after the town recites the 23rd Psalm. Ishia appears and tells him that he had no choice but to join the fishy cult. He negotiates staying against Barbara's release, but Ishia tells him that Barbara must bear Dagon's child. Ishia asks the priest to make arrangements for their marriage, but Paul escapes, killing the priest himself and the guards. He collects a can of kerosene and searches for Barbara. He reaches the church, but before he can burn it to the ground, he finds a hidden passage. He discovers a ritual chamber. There, he finds Ishia and the Imbokans with a naked Barbara, who is hanging from a trapeze to be sacrificed to Dagon. The locals chant, Ia, Ia, Cthulhu Fatagen, which is a chant that appears in several tales by H.P. Lovecraft. Paul attacks them by throwing kerosene on several townfolks and setting them on fire. He saves Barbara, who wants to die, having been raped by Dagon. Paul refuses, but Dagon himself comes and tears her body apart because she is his new consort. The Imbokans try to assault Paul when a deformed human and Ishia arrive. That monstrous human turns out to be Paul and Ishia's father. Yes, Ishia is his half-sister. Ishia tells him the story of his human mother, a woman who escaped Imboka after her half-breed husband raped and impregnated her. However, Paul's return meant that he will reunite with Ishia as her lover, and they will dwell with Dagon. Paul is now shocked, and he pours kerosene all over himself and sets himself on fire. Ishia drags him into the water, and he develops gills like a good fish. Now that he is a fish, he follows Ishia in the undersea lair of Dagon, and the movie comes to an end. A huge portion of this film was shot with a handheld camera. Director Stuart Gordon and writer Dennis Paoli have shown respect to the movie's source material through their writing, so fans of H.P. Lovecraft are likely to appreciate it. Following the release of Dagon, Francisco Rabel, the actor who played Ezekiel, passed away, making it his last role. Lovecraft's work always takes a deep dive into gruesome horror and cosmic elements, but Gordon introduces the premise realistically and allows the plot to unfold bit by bit, guiding the audience away from reality and into the Lovecraftian world of Cthulhu mythos. The lore portrayed in the movie is rich, and even though the symbol of the eye is a cinematic addition, it acts as a good plot point for foreshadowing what is about to come. The skinning aspect wasn't in the book either, but it ended up providing some extra flavors of gore for the avid fans of horror. With gore being brought up into the picture, the movie does not shy away from showing some gruesome imagery here and there. A particular factor that stood out among some fans was the special effects in the movie. Most believe that the CGI for Dagon has not aged well. Unfortunately, Dagon never got the acclamation it deserved. Tentacled humanoid monster, Ishia Kambaro. Before we talk about the Ishia Kambaro, the tentacled humanoid monster, it is better to dive into the origin of her species, the Deep Ones. As you already know, they are a bunch of fish-like humanoids who originally belonged to the ocean. The lore for the movie and the book differ so as per se the source material. The colony of the Deep Ones originally existed in the South Pacific, and Captain Obed Marsh had brought them to the USA. In America, the Deep Ones established the place of Innsmouth in Massachusetts. Unlike the Imboka we see in Spain, the creatures are a grotesque blend between humans, batrachians, that come from amphibians such as salamanders and frogs, and of course, fish. They have smooth skin under their scales, with eyes that lack eyelids. Similar to the kappa from Japanese folklore, the Deep Ones have webbed hands and feet. They have gill slits on the side of their neck, as we see on the innkeeper from Dagon the movie. They worship Mother Hydra and Father Dragon. They had entered a contract with humans where they kept the fish plentiful in Innsmouth in return for getting to breed with them. As creatures with batrachians in the blend, the Deep Ones can move around on land. However, their gait is something that would not be approved by the sophisticated members of society. They often breed with humans, which also signified that they were not immortal. The town of Imboka was full of this species, barring Ezekiel, who was the last pure-blooded human. When a human breeds with a Deep One, their offspring grow faster than the average human child, but gradually, their appearance becomes more and more fish-like. The skin turns gray, the eyes begin to bulge, the hands and feet grow large, and the skull becomes elliptical, hair is lost, and gills are developed. They looked so horrendous that the narrator of Lovecraft's book, Robert Olmsted, lost his consciousness after seeing them. Once a human kid began to transform into this species, they needed to hide and seclude themselves because they could no longer pass off for a human, which is why the deserted town, or Innsmouth, or Imboka, becomes their place of refuge. They return to the ocean after the completion of the transformation. They were conceived after the deity Dagon interbred with the humans of Innsmouth. The race has existed longer than humans, and according to Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, the Deep Ones and the Old Ones were enemies. One such member of the race who lived in Imboka was Ishia Kambaro, a young hybrid between a Deep One and a woman who recurrently appeared in Paul's dreams. She was the great-granddaughter of Orpheus Cambarro, the man who introduced the Church of Dagon to Imboka, and saved them from their poverty. In the movie, Ishia is also the priestess of the esoteric order of Dagon. She looks like a beautiful woman, but her physiology is far from being one that is grounded in reality. She boasts of cephalopod and piscine traits, which means that she has the traits of fish and octopi, with her gills and tentacles. But unlike most of the other Deep Ones or their hybrids, Ishia does not have webbed fingers. Due to having tentacles, she is confined to a wheelchair when on land, but swims when underwater. She is shown to be having a budding romance with protagonist Paul Marsh, whose original name is Pablo Cambarro. However, matters become gross when Paul, or Pablo, finds out that Ishia is his half-sister. As the rituals of Dagon required humans to be sacrificed, Paul ended up being another potential pawn. But Ishia came to his rescue by picking him as her mate. When Paul's girlfriend Barbara was taken away by Dagon himself, Paul tried to kill himself by setting himself on fire. Ishia managed to convince him by mentioning how Paul, now Pablo, did not dream of Barbara, but of Ishia. She came to his rescue and took him to the sea. After Paul developed gills, he remembered Ishia consistently appearing underwater in his dreams and accepted her love, and his ancestry. Right after losing his girlfriend, this man takes a fish woman as his lover. As part of the Cthulhu mythos, Ishia, as one of the Deep Ones, is likely to be connected to other races, and the biggest giveaway for that is Ishia being a tentacled humanoid. Unlike the others from Imboka, who had legs. In the book, The Shadow Over Innsmouth, Lovecraft implies that the Deep Ones are worshippers of Cthulhu, making them aware of a prophecy which relates to the old god. In the movie Dagon, light is shed upon this connection during a particular scene when the locals chant, Cthulhu Fatagen. Lovecraft's tales are connected, so this takes us to At the Mountains of Madness, a tale where Lovecraft introduced an extraterrestrial tentacled race that worships Cthulhu as well. Ishia could have been a hybrid between not just humans and Deep Ones, but also this race, resulting in her tentacles. It is unknown whether the two races were allied or not, but either way, Ishia likely has alien or spawn of Cthulhu ancestry in her DNA. Despite being so many weird creatures at once, Ishia is known for having human feelings. Why should you watch Dagon? As an ace director when it comes to adapting Lovecraft's work, Stuart Gordon hits the mark once again, as he combines the Shadow Over Innsmouth with Dagon to create the 2001 movie Dagon. The movie starts off slower, in a realistic set, with acting that is amateur, as it was the debut for several cast members, but it begins to pick up pace as the plot proceeds, and takes the audience down the rabbit hole of mythos once again. The movie also comes with several plot twists, such as Paul finding out about Ishia's existence, or Paul actually being Pablo Cambarro, which keeps the audience on the edge of their seats. Usage of gory imagery elevates the movie as an experience. The best thing about the movie? Its rewatch value. You can watch it over 4 times and it still remains exciting. Gordon manages to retain the chill factor one expects from horror and offers it in bountiful. And with that, today's video comes to an end. Have you watched this movie? Did you enjoy this video? If yes, then don't forget to like and comment on this video. Till then, Goodbye, and have a nice day.